Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I feel joyful just because of the season and seeing that little darling in the red dress and having her up there, just all in her joy, being enthusiastic. It's a great feeling. Wholeness kind of feels happy, you know? It's not in the slalomness of all the spirituality we get mired with sometimes. It's buoyant and good. So, thank you very much for having me. In re return to wholeness, that's kind of a huge topic. We have a limited amount of time, so we'll try to narrow it down. Um, what does it mean, return to wholeness? You know, people say, well, we already are whole. And I'll say, yes, in truth, that's a fact. But there's a lot of transformation that has to happen between that awareness, that truth, and that experience in your life. In other words, as a framework of your reality. So there's a lot of transformation. So how do we become unwhole, if there is such a thing? How do we perceive ourselves? How do we get that perception? So it begins by just coming into form. So just by being here in form, uh, we become divided. We live in a world that is made of energy and it's based in duality. So when we take on a form, from the time you're conceived until you're about 8 years old, we're continually inundated, saturated with negative emotion because it's part of the physical experience. And many teachings call it Maya, the illusion. It's the illusion. So when we're forming in the womb, in this little vessel of ours, we get the energies our mother and fathers haven't healed. We get our ancestral patterning. We get all these things that begin our conditioning before we even have a chance. So it's really no one's fault. It's just really what happens when we decide to come back into this reality and then transform our way back to the consciousness of wholeness or the one. I find that even saying one denotes separation. It's like you're one related to what? So for me, the only whole number is zero because it expands and it's all connected, but it's not an it just is all connected. Um, so about the time we're hit about 8 years old, our mind is then sufficiently developed to discern and to override how it feels and then tell a story. And the story then perpetuates the illusion rather than solving the problem. Because what happened to you as a child, it wasn't what was said or what wasn't said, or what happened or what didn't happen. It was how you felt about what happened or didn't happen. It was how you felt about what was said or what wasn't said. So there's a big difference. So we can immediately, in our beginning of our healing process, take mom and dad and everybody else that helped raise us in our formative years really off the hook. And all we have to do is own how we felt and know that that's enough. And to overcome these things, within ourselves. Sure, there's support. We don't do anything alone at all. Wholeness is a consciousness. The consciousness is love. And in this dimension, it's golden light. And there's reasons for that, which we don't have time to really go into, but it is. So when we look at duality being the door, that's what we're faced with. The reason that Yeshua and other golden light masters, have come to tell us that all we need is love is because that's what dissolves the duality within our consciousness, within our human consciousness, to arrive at the uh, beginning to really be love instead of just know what that looks like and act the way we do, right? But there you go. So, golden light in this dimension is about wholeness. Everything here we have found is created from the love of God, which is that. So it can be transformed, how we perceive it, back to the truth of what it is, which is golden light. It's demonstrated quite colorfully in my first book, if you ever pick it up. It's called The Absence of Evil, Love's Reclamation of the Soul. And it's a powerful look at the dynamics of things that brought me to these conclusions because there was no book written on it that I'm aware of, because I don't read other people's books. And it's all been a process from the inside out. So, as I said, it's not what happened, it's how you felt about it. So, negative emotions are again part of the physical experience. They live within the physical body. That's the root of all illness that I've found. By the time it manifests on a physical level, it's been held there for quite a while, ruminating, unloved. And it only feels separate from love. That's it. Negative emotion feels separate from love because we are taught, we're conditioned by mother, father, religion, society, and everybody that, knowing everything is really enough. And so we're conditioned to have our golden bubble that we introduced you to today, this beautiful spirit that entered your body when you took your first breath. It anchored itself in your solar plexus. When you work with that bubble of your being to stay in the form, um, it's quite a different experience of life because you become more present to the presence of your being rather than the personality we're taught to identify with. It's quite beautiful to play with that orb. So, because we're conditioned to think that way, that golden orb is like a child that's never been taught when to go to bed at night. It just drifts up to the mental body. It's in the body of knowing as if that's enough, but it stays separate from the negative emotions that can actually live anywhere within the form, but primarily live below the line of the solar plexus. So the negative emotion that's left in the dark feels separate from the love that it is. And by awakening the consciousness of love within the physical and emotional bodies through the process of meditations and activations and other things that we do, you can then learn how to be the presence of love, to access the consciousness of love from within the form itself, to be the presence of love that transforms the negative emotion within the form, and subsequently the form itself transforms. So we're taught that the body means nothing and that higher consciousness is everything. But in truth, you are made of higher consciousness. It's just, again, not going to be your experience unless you make the consciousness that you are, even on a physical and emotional level, conscious. There's a good tongue twister for you. Um, so anyway, it's just part of our conditioning. So it's one thing to know your love, and it's another thing to act loving. But when you don't feel love towards yourself, and it divides. And believe it or not, the heart is actually in the mental body as well. So people until they transform the wounds in the heart. And a lot of that is religiously inclined, how we are, how we should treat others, not how we just give from love freely without putting things in piles. Who's worthy of love, who's not worthy of love, and figuring it all out. And it's love just loves. One of our sayings is love doesn't care, love just loves. It doesn't look and say, you're worthy, you're not worthy, you do this and you do that. It just loves. So there's nothing here or within you that's not worthy of that love. So the conditioning is what we're here to get over. So that's what we're dealt with. We're dealing with the door. And I have found love to be the only thing, the golden light in this dimension that is actually has a lasting effect. Because once you transform the negative emotion within your physical body, your experience begins to change because you vibrate differently. Consciousness right now is at an all-time high for these tools to be the most effective. It's time for consciousness to really rise to the occasion of what is coming in the way of our experience here on Earth. It's essential. Community is also essential. It's beautiful to see what you have going on up there. Um, so that's really the solution that I have found, and the only one that I have found to be lasting, although there are many other expressions of the divine, which are all wonderful, and there's the door for everyone, right? So who cares how you end up getting where you get, as long as it takes you to love within yourself, so you can be that for others. We're at a very pivotal time in the evolution of human consciousness. And so making the consciousness of love, or Yeshua, conscious within you, will help you settle into the parts within you that you have kept in the dark. And they will make themselves known to you, and they already do, but people aren't quite used to recognizing it as such. So, again, because it is energy, energy is everything, and everything is energy. It's a scientific fact. This is very scientific, actually. Um, Science proved a few years ago, I don't know if any of you heard, but many of us have been doing this for many decades. They finally proved that everything here is made of light. And so we're like, yay, that must be so. But energy can't cut itself off and float away. You can't separate yourself from something that is yourself, but you can transform it without trying to make it go away out of avoidance, out of, your judgment of whatever you're viewing. So it's very important that we learn to face ourselves and whatever we face an external reality that's a reflection of that with love. Because when we do that, we know that there's everything can win, right? But if we face ourselves or others with judgment, then there's no healing that can possibly happen. So it's really important to work with the consciousness of love within you, as well as from reading a book or just having an experience outside that makes you feel good temporarily. I'm not saying there aren't struggles because we're always wrestling with ourselves, right? There'll be something that someone says or did that would just rubs us the wrong way. And in my case, all I do is I take whatever that is and I will spend as much time as I need to wrestling myself to the ground if I have to then overcome it. What does this mean until I find that part of myself that is actually in resistance and I come full circle with it, utilizing the consciousness of love within me that is always there for her. We have established and maintained this connection for many, many, many years. And so it's a natural thing. I've bridged the gap. A lot of people don't bridge that gap. So they have a different experience of that in their life. So again, it's the difference between knowing that you're love and having that be the experience of your reality. It's quite different. A lot of truths people know but don't experience as their reality, and you can if you want. So the emotional body is all that all it is. There's a difference when you learn how to be grounded. We use the tool of grounding and golden light throughout every single thing we do, whether it's healing a home or whether it's helping people heal. When you're grounded, you're present. That golden orb has a presence. When you learn how to really open up that root chakra and get grounded to the center of the earth and work with how that feels and how that looks, you can manage that even throughout your day. It's not something that you need to disconnect from. It's this consciousness within you that gives you life every day. You need to learn to work with. So you have a different experience of who you know yourself to be and how you move through the world. It's quite wonderful. So when we get grounded, we become self-aware. We become aware of self with a capital S, which is this beautiful spirit that gives us life. And then we also become aware of the parts of ourself, of the little self that show up in something someone will say or something we see that we want to judge. And it makes us very aware because we're present. And that's a good thing because anytime you can become aware of something, that's like half the battle. I feel angry about that. Well, it's not the other person. They're simply triggering a part of you that is angry. And, so you can go in and find that small part of you that is always in that child between conception and 8 that feels angry. And you learn how to surround her or him with the consciousness of love and teach them that it's okay to express how they feel because negative emotion is a held energy. If you're grounded in feeling a feeling, you don't become the feeling itself. It's only when you're ungrounded and your mind is identifying the feeling that then it becomes something larger and you lose touch with the feeling altogether. And then there's the story and there's the language and then there's the energy and it becomes part of the problem of the world of duality rather than the solution. So owning how you feel is really important. When you're grounded in the presence of your being, you're contained in a field of love. When you do your inner work, we strongly recommend that. I remember back in the old days, like in the beginning of our healing, oh my gosh, back in 88, 89, I got my wake up call back then. Um, there were programs called EST and all of that. Do you remember those? Werner Erhard, Forum and all that. Yeah, okay. So the first gal that ever ripped the lid off my denial was actually a channel, and I love her so much. Thank you so much for everything. But she also was an MA and she was also a clinical hypnotherapist and she did some of that work. And I remember one of the exercises being that you just open up and just yell everything that you have feel to this person sitting there in the chair. And I'm like mortified thinking about that today because of what it actually does, not only to the person who can't fortify their energy field, but to the great illusion of duality itself. So it becomes this energy that then becomes part of that larger, darker whole. So we know that we are love, which is part of the whole of everything. And so as we connect to love, we connect to more of that love. Well, the same thing happens in this dimension when you connect to more of the negative emotion or lower vibrations. So when we're speaking all that out into the world, it's actually, you know, amplifying what we see in the world today. So if everybody woke up tomorrow and there were 600 or 700,000 of us left and we're all of light, mind, and body, all the pollution and everything on the planet couldn't even be there because it's all a projection of what we're holding within ourselves. So that's how powerful our inner state of being is. That's how powerful the love that you are is. You have the power within you to love yourself out of that reflection. And like I say, it gets easier. So we use the tools of grounding and golden light. That's the solution. Becoming self-aware for one reason only, to love yourself more. That's it. I've eaten a lot of humble pie in my life, and I bet I'm not finished yet. And it's the path of awareness, humility, love, and transformation. Because we're all in it together, right? So there it is. We have to learn to let each other grow in each other's presence and make it safe. And the only way that can happen is if we too are love. We make it safe for other people, so they make it safe for ourselves. We hold each other and ourselves in love. It's a very beautiful way when you have people surrounding you that are, along those lines. So, golden light is also a non-resistant form of protection. So, a lot of people say, I have to put this energy out here to protect myself from evil out there. And then again, you're perpetuating division rather than wholeness. All there is love and truth, but you're never going to know that until your perception shifts. And the only way I've found that my perception truly shifts that is lasting is by transforming negative emotion within my emotional body. Granted, it's been 37 years of this, but now the consciousness is so much more, it's larger, the light is growing, and we have the benefit of being able to transform so much more now. Every small step we take toward love opens the door even wider for you to experience it. So there we have everything at our disposal right now to do that. So grounding is important for self-love, only so you love yourself more, and in that you, of course, are able to love others. Um, so you learn to work with yourself as the consciousness of love, not just know that you're love and that it's possible. So that's where the shift is. So we find this work very empowering and very important for right now. Like how we hold ourselves in contempt is how we treat others, how we think of others. Um, in our, we get to hear ourselves when we're grounded too. We're more present. Our thoughts have energy. People think they can hide in their thoughts, and a lot of people still think they can, but everyone's transparent now. It's all energy, and the more sensitive many people become, the more they perceive um, these subtleties. You're very, very golden light and grounding increases your uh, cyclical counterparts in your senses, in internally and also externally. It absolutely makes you more self-aware, which is part of what that is. Just being more aware of everything and kind of simultaneously as well. So there's no thinking process in these tools. It's really neat. Love being non-resistant doesn't need to think because thinking divides. It's when you try to figure it out that you get lost because there's no way to think your way into a love box, into a love sphere. There's no way to think your way into that state. You have to allow love to happen and you have to allow love, period. So, um, let's see. I'm trying to track time, but I'm not very good at that here. Um, I found that for me anyway, when I've worked with a lot of people over the years, they Read a lot of books that give them a lot of ideas, and the books are really intended to open up doors within your soul to give you more information through that avenue, not saturate your mental body with knowledge, because that's again where we keep ourselves divided. Knowing it is not enough, because if it were, we'd all be healed. We'd all be whole within ourselves. But it just becomes something more that we can talk to other people about and have people agree with us rather than have, real meaningful conversations. Because if people aren't getting down into what divides them, which is what they hold at bay within themselves as if there's something wrong with them. I mean, consider this. When Yeshua healed the sick, he never saw them as sick and in that they were healed. So you can't face yourself with division and heal anything. So if your perspective is, I'm sick and I need to be healed, then you're dividing. So it's a way of being in your mind that is whole. Some sort of emotion comes up to divide that way of describing it, then you get to deal with that too. But that is the way to become whole within yourself in terms of self-love and healing and transformation is to never face yourself with judgment because you'll run every time. Because we've been taught since we were small to put things in good and bad piles, us and them out there, but there is no other. So you're just looking at yourself. And so that's how we become whole is by making ourselves whole. And therefore, nothing else matters. It's amazing how you're just not looking to find a reason for everything, It just is that. And we just keep being love and sharing the way we come to love with others. So that's how I've learned and taught many others to reclaim the light of the soul from the inside out. When we do that, it changes our perception. It changes the patterns in our brain physically. I have yet to find a scientist that I can prove that theory, but I know it's actually true. I'm kind of living proof of that. But it changes the way you view yourself and others. Therefore, your words change, your intentions change. It becomes really a way you serve humanity rather than the way you serve yourself, the way you just serve yourself. When we look at love in a dimensional way, and this will be in my second book, all the metaphysics and science about it. People often, even though we're not judging it, this is just what we found through many years of this work, is that white light is about knowing. It can't live within the physical form below the solar plexus. It pops in and out. That's what channeling is. I used to be a channel. I used to teach channeling classes. It was so fun. But anyway, all that got changed when they told me they were governing the information so I could realize I was the information I was seeking outside of myself. And they gave me a set of tools with golden light. And I was really defiant. And I'm like, are you serious? But what I got to do by utilizing the tools was to discover what within myself that I was not in love with, that I didn't bring to the light. And channeling keeps you very divided. Up here knowing a lot of wonderful things, but not really embodying that truth completely. Not loving yourself, which is the most important thing you can do to be whole, whole for others. The wisdom that comes from that comes from the other side of your pain. It doesn't come from a knowing that you just get. You don't figure it out first. That's how I've come to know everything. How I've come to be who I am is just getting the aha on the other side of the healing, on the other side of the pain. So, white light is what everybody aspires to. It's pure spirit. It's God energy. It's source energy. It's beautiful. It's what actually gives love life. So we look at it in dimensional difference. Golden light is completely whole within itself, and it has all the light pinks and all the blues and all these other beautiful, high vibrational colors. It's all in there. But those don't solve the problem of duality. They take you to a higher level without going through the step of learning love first. And have found that love is a step, a very important step for humanity to take to come to God within that love. So in this dimension, white light is an aspect of the golden light. It gives love life in higher dimensions of white light. Golden light is an aspect or the love of the Father, you see. So if we didn't need love to become whole and then emerge into the kingdom, it would be unnecessary, but I have found it necessary to be able to be who I am congruently. Because we meet people who have a lot of great things going on and we get close to them, and that's not really the story because it's kind of a screen because they haven't come to love, but it looks really good out here, but they haven't come to love, so they can't really get close to them, and that's okay. Everyone's got their own path. But our path that we're very passionate about is coming to love. Coming to love so everything can emerge from within that love quite naturally. From that state of wholeness to know the kingdom of heaven, which is within everyone and everything. It's just vibrational frequencies are different in the higher realms. Um, Colors are different. I've worked on properties. I utilize golden light. I work on a property for 9 months every single day until it transforms. I've worked with colleagues that are used to using, why don't we just take the light of Saint Germain and run it through the place? And I'm like, well, that's not really how it works. Because it's not lasting, because it just doesn't work that way in this dimension. But it was interesting to show them on the other side of what we were doing, what emerges from within that wholeness when it becomes whole. So that's a lot of metaphysical information, but it's all through discovery and experience, many different cases and over the many, many years. And so we keep evolving, and so the ahas keep coming and the humility keeps flowing, and and the love keeps getting bigger everywhere. We just take ourselves off the hook, and what a relief it is to not, it's not that you don't care, it's just that you don't even really see it like you used to see it, which is really nice. The head is so busy dividing things into piles that it's only interpreting how you feel on an emotional level, you see. But most people are so out of touch with their negative emotions that they don't even realize that's what's happening. Your voice, what you say, can lead you to where the wound is so you can heal it within the emotional body. But people think they just hold it separately. And many of us did that to survive. We certainly don't judge a thing because everyone comes to it in a different way. But you stuff how you feel in order to survive. And that's what begins to happen at about 8 years old, 9 years old. Everything you've accumulated as a small child, just because you came into form, begins to manifest as your reality, reinforcing how you feel without even knowing it. And then you believe it to be true because the mind is identifying it and creating a story. And because it shows itself in your external reality, you say, yep, there it is. And then you get 8 billion people who believe the same thing, no matter what it is. And that's what creates the construct that we live in. So every one of us that undoes ourself from this dualistic perspective becomes more of the love that is needed in the world to create that tipping point to where love becomes the dominant vibration. Love becomes the dominant experience. So I think we're at the precipice. Honestly, I do. Okay, need a time check. Nope, I guess we're okay. I'll give you a pro tip on how to deal with that mind sometimes. Are we all set? I can see her walking. Can't hear anything. Um, if you're having a row with the mind and it's going off, okay, hold on.
The answer was yes.
Okay,
I think, can you hear me now?
I can. Thank you.
We'll call it quits there, but I could listen to you forever. There's just so much wonderful information there, full of wisdom, obviously from self-experience.
Yep.
So thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
very
sharing.
much.
Do you have a final thought?
Love yourself more. Thank you.
Boston today. She's also scheduled to actually be here in person the end of April as our speaker, and she's also going to do a workshop. And her workshop is Tools for Wholeness and Transformation. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind, or if you have a 2026 calendar, time to put that in. So thank you again. If anyone is here for the first time and would like to know what is going on here at Unity at the Lake, you can sign up for our weekly update. It comes in on a Wednesday morning. You would go to unityathelake.org, click on the weekly update, and then subscribe. And just to let you know, a recording of what Siobhan just shared with us will be on the weekly update. Our speaker is recorded and comes out the next Wednesday, so you might want